and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item is the approval of the minutes. The minutes are in your packet. We have our executive session. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, questions, indivisible, changes to the minutes as they've been presented.
Accept the minutes as presented.
Mr. Cross moves to accept as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Issue with a second. Anything else before we vote? All right. All those in favor of approving the minutes of our May 11th meeting and executive session as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Minutes will stand approved. Board President's comments. I want to thank Mrs. Dickerson and all those that have been involved with the senior recognition. We had a parade well over a week ago, and as the parent of a senior girl, I very much appreciated that. We had signs along Viking Trail. Some of the parents organized an event at Cornerstone Campground, and I think we've done about as well as we could to recognize our seniors in this strange time. So I appreciate Ms. Dickerson, Ms. Clone, and I'm sure several others that I'm leaving out, but appreciate everybody's efforts. I think it's much appreciated by the senior class and certainly by the parents. So thank you. Another item I want to mention, if you look at our personnel report this month, we're losing two people to Westdale, Mr. Reagan and Ms. Brewer. We kind of knew about Mr. Reagan last month, but didn't have him on the agenda, and then we lost Ms. Brewer. And I talked to Eric a little bit today, and we've lost 3 administrators to Westdale in 5 years. We lost Mr. Slopsma, we lost Mr. Purdue, and we lost Mr. Reagan. Now Ms. Brewer is a teacher. Westdale would seem to me to be a pretty similarly situated school. Might be a little bigger, but not overwhelming. A small community, not too far away from us. So that really got me thinking about, what do we need to do? Because we've got a great corporation here, we've got a lot of great people, but we can't be blinded by that. We're not an A school. We're losing people. We're losing students, and we're losing good administrators and staff members. Not that we can keep everybody, not that we should keep everybody, but to me, I think there are easy answers to some of those questions, and I think there are hard answers or second level answers. Ms. Brewer is getting a very significant raise, is my understanding. Can't fault her for that. But then the question becomes, could we have paid that if we even wanted to? And I think the answer probably would be no. So what are they doing different? What can we figure out? Can we work with the union in a different manner? We've got to be innovative. We've got to be different. We get locked in, the state tells us what we have to do and how high to jump, and sometimes we just do it. But I think we've got to think differently. We've got to be bold. I thought a lot of Mr. Reagan and the time that he was here. I thought a lot of Mr. Purdue. The easy answer is to say, well, it's a lot closer for Mr. Reagan. But again, secondhand information, but it saves him about 10 minutes on his drive. So there's, would I leave a job I was thoroughly happy with for a 10-minute savings on my drive? Doubt it. With Mr. Purdue, again, secondhand information, but I understand there was friction with some people that he worked with, not necessarily Eric, but some other staff members that he had to deal with, and there was some friction there in that faculty. So we got to be, I think as a board, we've got to be better. I think we've got, Ms. Crevson, it's got to be better. I think top down, we have got to be better. We've got to ask tough questions. We've got to turn up our game a little bit. Westdale should not be stealing administrators left and right. I don't believe that. Nothing against Westdale, but I think we've got to dig deeper and just think boldly and be willing to change some things up. So that's my stump speech for this evening. But it's just a challenge. We've got to be better. We've got to figure out some of these things and maybe make some people angry. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Crevson.
See the big stacks of stuff in there. We've been keeping and collecting and putting things together, anticipating kind of what may have come from the governor's executive order of this week. Didn't know what it might prescribe or proscribe. As a matter of reality, wasn't a lot of things in there that weren't really what school's already doing. They're addressing timelines of the phases now. That doesn't just include school, but easing up on some other things. Really just getting ahead of things involves a lot of things we're already doing. If someone is in our community and the kid comes to school and they have a fever, they're clearly infectious, they're clearly sick, we're not going to let them come in. That won't change. Looking at a student that has other symptoms, checking for a fever. We have ordered gloves, we've ordered masks, and we've ordered the kinds of things that'll help us do those checks. And Mrs. Hughes and I have a meeting coming up with county health official, and then we have a series of other meetings with the really basically the superintendents of the schools that send students to the career center. So we have that relationship. We don't want things to be dramatically different among the schools. On the other hand, if you have a dramatically different good idea, then it can get shared pretty quickly, and it'll make things much more uniform and make much more sense to people. And so we're meeting this week with the area superintendents to do that at the end. Okay. Yeah, we'll go around all. So things aren't wildly different. For the most part, the cleaning plan, the feeding plan, transportation, social distancing, that's been talked about a lot. Most of that's going to look very similar, but there are some other things that we're learning from each other. And through this week with the meeting of the county health officer and then with the other superintendents, and then finding into things that we're already looking at doing here for the reopening. They're not exactly the same, but everyone in the areas working together pretty much come to the same safe goal of letting us come back to school when it's safe to come back to school.
There any plan? I mean, I didn't hear about his plan. I heard some people like 3 days in class, 2 days away, and whatever.
Yeah.
Is that,
you can already do that.
I don't understand.
Yeah, the executive the executive order didn't have much new in it, and we already, let's say most of the schools already, okay, don't come if you have a fever, don't come if you have this. We're not going to let you in if you're that. If you're going to be in the clinic, you have to do certain things to get out of the clinic. Cleaning and then monitoring and making sure that, it'll be kids that are going to violate the social distancing, not thinking one moment that it's clicking. It's because they're kids. And that's going to take just some reiteration, some reinforcement. Say, you got to stay healthy. You got to do this. These are things we're going to have to do. Already been talking with Chartwells and the grab and go model and keeping things very, very simple. And then in the food service too, additional cleaning in areas that are just going to be they get dirty frequently, and that has to do with some age as well. So getting that information together and then bringing some of a common ground, and we're going to get together with people in our own corporation and plan out the details of how that school reopening is going to look for us.
Jim from McCormick the other day had like a 38-page thing, and in a lot of schools it's pretty much up to the school how you.
Yeah, that was the back part of the governor's executive order.
Yeah,
and I've got a copy of it in there, and basically much of it reiterates or advocates for things that almost every school is already doing. The actual governor's executive order was kind of thin, and it also included, okay, this phase will end on the 3rd of July. Schools can come in on these days, and I've got copies. If you want to take a look at the actual resolution, I'll get it for you. But there's really very little in there. It says it'll give you suggestions such as alternate lunch times. Well, schools are already it was written by people not really completely familiar
Will
with
some
council.
schools call it back like this never happened?
Yeah, we will have schools that will start on the day that's on their calendar with no masks. So, yeah, 5 days a week and basically 8-3.
I'm kind of like either you go 5 days or don't go at all. If you go 3 and 2 or whatever, you're still at risk every time you.
Yeah, and a lot of the schools that kind of advocated those things got out in front pretty quickly. And it wasn't concrete enough necessarily at the time. And it's evolved. And a lot of them were doing those kinds of things and asking questions of the community. But one of the things that does come out in almost all of the communications from the governor, including that document, that executive order that was then interpreted, it reiterates repeatedly that you don't count on the state. This is a school decision. What you do is a local decision, and it's not followed with something like, but since it's in this document, you'll get a certain amount of protection if it goes wrong. That's not there. So so you can see it before you leave here if you want. It's somewhat generic. The document then that accompanied it, that was I think it was called In School, or what was that called? In School.
I think so.
They came associated with, that was the Department of Ed's clarification and sort of reinforcement of what was in the executive order. And again, it reiterates constantly what you're going to do in your schools is a local decision, but include the county health official in it. And that's reiterated in what we got this week.
So we're going to try to correspond with all 5 schools, and hopefully everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, we already have. And again, because we're looking at much, and not just in this county, but membership in the curriculum. Many of the people in that circle are communicating among that circle. And we actually have a superintendent's meeting this week, really, that's going to be composed of back and forth of the sending schools of the Newcastle Career Center. And the schools are so similar that it'll just make it makes things better for all the schools if, let's just say, if 66.6% of what we're doing to respond is common among the area, that will help people later on as well. So then it'll be a common thing. Now, the other thing is we're still going to have kids that get the flu and are sick and coughing, and it has nothing to do with COVID. But that's what we've done in our profession since the beginning of time. Is you're sick, you got to go home, or you got to get in the clinic, or you have to isolate yourself. Don't come back until you're done doing it. We've done that. That's just school 101 stuff. So if you come in and you present symptoms that would someone say these are,
We're always,
yeah, we have some starts, but we don't have it not concrete yet.
Anything else on that before we move on? Okay, next is board actions and consent agenda. First resolution is 2020-6-1, the monthly financial report. Questions or concerns on the financial report?
Positive or negative. Will we accept the financial report resolution R 2020-6-1 as prepared?
Motion and a second. Anything else? All those in favor of adopting resolution 2020-6-1, approval of the monthly financial report, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Financial report will stand approved. Next is the claims report, 2020-6-2. Claims report's in your packet. Questions or concerns on the claims report?
Do we accept the claims report as?
A motion and a second. Anything else? All those in favor of approving the claims report, resolution 2020-6-2, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next is the personnel report, resolution 2020-6-3. Items on this month's personnel report: resignation of certified staff member Todd Reagan, elementary principal. River Elementary, effective June 30th. Resignation of certified staff member Stacy Conley. Excuse me, elementary teacher, effective May 29th, 2020. Resignation of certified staff member Kristen Brewer, science teacher, junior senior high, effective May 29th, 2020. And the hiring of certified staff member Caitlin Ellison, English language arts teacher at junior senior high, effective August 5th, 2020. Questions, concerns, or any amendments to the personnel report?
We accept the personnel report as submitted. Resolution 2020-06.
Motion and a second to accept personnel report as presented. Anything else before we vote? All those in favor of adopting resolution 2020-6-3, the personnel report as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next is resolution 2020-6-4, which is the monthly transfer from education operations. For the month of May 2020, it is recommended that we authorize the transfer of $25,395.41 from the education fund to the operation.
I make a motion that we accept resolution R 2020-6-4.
Motion and a second. Anything else? All those in favor of adopting resolution 2020-6-4, the monthly transfer from education to operations, as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution will stand approved. Next is the adoption of school lunch prices. See the resolution in your packet for school year 2020 to 2021. You see the recommendations there. Elementary paid lunch would be $2.80. High school paid lunch $2.95. Adult lunch for high school and elementary $3.55. And adult breakfast would be $2.25. Those are recommendations. And if I recall from previous years, we don't really have a lot of flexibility in that.
It goes through a formula.
So, questions or concerns?
I make a motion that we accept resolution R 2020-6-5.
Motion and a second. Anything else? All those in favor of approving resolution 2020-6-5, the school lunch prices for school year 2020-2021, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next is 2020-6-6, which is elementary book rent and fees. You see the schedule in your packet there. Not a lot of big changes. Looks like the largest change is grade level 4 is up $8.04. If I'm looking at that correct. Some went down, some went up. That's the recommendation.
We accept resolution R 2020-6-6 as prepared.
Motion and a second. Anything else before we vote? All those in favor of adopting resolution 2020-6-6, the elementary book rental schedule as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next is a resolution that I don't believe is in your packet. It is on the agenda, and I think everybody's had a chance to review it. I know Mr. Harvey's available if we have questions. I don't know if it was his office prepared, was it Joel's office that prepared the tax warrant resolution?
Sure, I think so, yes.
Joel. Was it your office that prepared the tax warrant resolution?
I believe Greg prepared it, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So Joel might be able to answer any questions we have, but essentially I think the nuts and bolts of it is we are at least authorizing the ability to have essentially a type of a line of credit that we would be able to access if tax revenues either are short or delayed in payment to meet our obligations. I think that's the 50,000 view of what we're trying to accomplish. Is that correct?
Mhm. Yeah, it's money spent now in anticipation of the full income from the taxes at the end of the period.
So what drove the need for this now? I don't think I see this.
I'm not sure we haven't, but I don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, I think the concern is the delay in the property tax payment and potential reduction in property tax revenues. Is that right?
Yeah.
It's driven by, okay, that was my question.
Okay.
It's driven by property taxes, not payroll.
Right, or a calendar. Okay, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right. Is, here in Henry County, well, I guess statewide, you can pay your property taxes without penalty up to June 15th.
Okay.
June or July? I think it's June. July? Okay. So I know from what I've heard through the county, and Joel's the county attorney, it sounds like the tax revenues aren't terribly behind at the county level, but I know some of the big taxpayers are holding out and holding on to that money for a little longer, so it hasn't been paid. So, usually we probably would get our draw in maybe June or July, and now they're probably not going to settle up until August or September, and that's going to delay that part of it. And then some people, based on what's going on, may not be able to pay their taxes as committed, so there'll be delays in reduction of revenue. But that's the
Gotcha. Good.
So this is a standard, a lot of schools.
It's a standard practice. All governmental
Right now.
entities that rely upon the property tax draw.
And it looks like we can take a draw, so we don't have to take it all at once and pay interest on it. We can use like a line of credit. If we need it, we can access it. If we don't, I'm sure there's an administration fee to get it started, but don't have to take it if we don't need it. I don't believe. Does that sound right, Joel? We don't have to take this if we can approve it, but we don't have to take a draw if we don't need it, right?
That's correct.
Make a motion to accept, resolution 2020-6.
Second.
Motion and a second. Anything else? Questions on the tax warrant resolution? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of adopting resolution 2020-6-7, authorizing tax anticipation warrants, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and I know we don't have a typical agenda, but I know Mrs. Dickerson's here, so maybe now's a good time. If you have any report from junior, senior high, or elementary, I'm not sure. I think it's still junior, senior high, but
Our biggest thing was just the parade went off successfully. We cleaned out lockers and had most kids have their things collected. That was a big task, and very appreciative of everybody that helped with that. Elementary has had their item pickup as well, and so those were big things of uncertainty that we got done. One area that we're strongly looking at is being able to go K-12 1-to-1 this fall, and Mr. Hardy and I have been working with Mrs. Keeney and Mr. Crevison on how exactly that would happen, and we're down to, I think, about the closest we have is we've got about 2 options on financial choices, and so we're hoping to go K-12 next year, this year, I guess, in the fall with devices, and so that'll be big news for us, and the teacher development and parent development and student development with that. Those are kind of the big things. We're still pushing for a traditional as possible graduation. We've kind of got 3 options as to what we're looking at. A traditional, limited attendance would be option B, or if those aren't possible, then doing a drive-in style of graduation on July 20th. And so we're still pushing for that. We did have to cancel the idea of a prom. None of the other, as far as I'm aware of, last I talked to all the principals in Henry County, they're not able to pull that off either, or their focuses haven't been on that as much, and that was hard to give that up because I know it's something our kids wanted, but when we talked about it, to find the right magic date and be able to offer that in a venue that honestly at this point would be willing to accept us. It was kind of difficult, to be honest. So we dropped that news I think I said either Thursday or Friday of last week. So that was disappointing, but at the same time, decision I think we kind of had to make. As far as I know, there's only maybe 2 schools in the area still attempting to have one. I would highly encourage parent groups that want to try something to go for it. But we just kind of felt that was a need. I don't know that we have, it's been really busy, but everybody's done, I think, a really good job of just making it through the moments. And I think we're learning as we go with it too, as education's kind of on that brink of change, and what is it going to look like? We're trying to figure that out at the same time. I think for this past time we survived, I think we'll excel as we move forward.
Have we talked about the CARES Act with this board? Does that sound familiar?
You know, I can heard about it.
Okay, yeah, it's related to the event, and the part that is coming to schools is coming through title, and it's kind of like the ADM. It's a amount of money that's proportionate basically to the size of the school. So our amount is comparable to a Cowan, a school our size, and it worked out to about 130. It's 107. It changed a few times.
It keeps kind of changing.
Yeah. But in looking at going forward with increasing use of technology, be more prepared to move into that, we really had little choice but to pull the devices all the way down to K. So we'll be K through 12 with the connectivity and the devices. But that's coming out of the CARES money and not out of other funds.
Any questions for Mrs. Dickerson? All right, thank you. Old business is second reading and adoption of policy 5153 for weighted grades. And I might remind the board, I think we can have a motion to suspend the rules. As long as that's unanimous, we can suspend the actual second reading. Go straight to the adoption of the policy.
Move the rules to prevent a second reading of the policy.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Of course you don't second.
Anything else? All those in favor of suspending the rules and suspending the second reading, moving to the adoption of amended policy 5153, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So showing that is unanimous, I think maybe it'd be cleanest if we go ahead and take a motion to suspend the second reading. Is there a motion to adopt amended policy 5153?
I make a motion to adopt. Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions or concerns on the policy before we go? All those in favor of adopting amended policy 5153 as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Something I think we need to add under old business, which is kind of falling off my radar, is the Wall of Fame. I know we need to get back on that. I'd like to maybe recognize some folks this school year. And get back to something normal, and that might be something good for video, Skype or whatever. So I think where we need a letter where we identify the people. Okay. All right. So get a letter for next month or email it to us and we can start that, and then we can start to figure out what the recognition or ceremony might look like.
Figure out where we want to put it. That was one of the things we were still debating last time.
So
We talked about in the hall to the south side of the library.
we may wait till we redo the entrance.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could custom build if you do it concurrent with some of the work.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just don't lose sight of that. And then,
Before legal business.
yeah,
Is there any update on the Mount Summit?
I was getting ready to mention that.
We do. Oh, you can go ahead.
Well, I know we have the two appraisals or market opinions from the brokers. Joel, the disposition of the Mount Summit School, what do we need to do there?
Well, you've essentially got two options at this point. You can, and you have some flexibility based on this. You can determine as a board what the offering price will be using those two appraisals, and then publish a notice that you'll receive bids for it on a certain day. And then at that point, receive the bids, and then you can elect to sell the property then to what's the highest and best bid. The second option you have is you could publish notice of your intention to hire a broker, and then simply hire a broker to market the property and sell it. The broker would be paid a standard commission, of course. And I guess your third option in that would be that you could offer the property for sale through an auctioneer. But you do have a little bit of flexibility with it, but utilizing those processes. But you do have the two appraisals in, which are the first step. Or I guess the first step in getting the process getting the property ready to be sold. So,
And I know Mike kind of got those for us. Mike, do you remember offhand? I think one was 80 and one was
40 or 60.
It's in my email. I don't
Yeah.
just don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, John, actually, I looked at those and excuse me, I've got fire trucks coming by my office. So, okay, now they passed. It was 55 and 80.
Okay.
Take that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and it's the median of the two, right?
That would be our, so Joel, we'd have to offer at the average of the two to start.
Correct.
And then if it doesn't sell, is it like, I assume it's like the RDC properties, we'd be able to negotiate if we don't get anybody?
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
You can then sell it to, anybody that's interested anybody that's interested.
So what's your pleasure? We could do a broker, auctioneer, or we could publish that we want to offer it at the average of 55 and 80. And then if it doesn't sell at that price, math people help me out, 60-ish, 67.5. So if it doesn't sell at 67.5 or above, then we would be able to, I don't know if we've got to wait 30 days, but we'll figure out the logistics. Then we could sell it to anybody at any price that we would deem appropriate. We'd have to go through the average of the two and publish that to be able to do that.
I think that would be our best option because we're not out any financially. For the other thing, we pay a broker 7%, but more than likely, a lot of brokers are not going to take that property on the conditions it's in.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what you said first, offer it at 67.5. If it doesn't bring that, which it won't, then go to a public bid and pick one of the best you got.
Is that a motion?
Well, with that, what all do we, from a legal standpoint, disclose and all, do we have to, in the write-up, or how do we go about doing that? From the legal description and if there's any, we know there's issues with the building,
I know there's a very fuel tank.
It's fuel tank, there's asbestos.
There's asbestos. There's water issues in there. There's a water leak over that building somewhere. Yeah, there was.
I mean, I don't know, just, it's as is.
To be honest with you, we get out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going
Yeah.
We'll be out of it for $1. We'll better.
So we do.
It'll just be the friction. I mean, it's constant friction. I drive that all the time, just waiting for it to find something that's been really destroyed or.
I just didn't know from a legal standpoint if we're offering, I mean, how do we prepare that so that we make sure everybody knows up front, here's the, or do they just have to ask, right? Fire beware.
I think we would have to have a time for people that are going to be public.
Look at it.
Get a look at it.
Joel, I don't know how much of that you're hearing, but what's our obligation or the process to disclose? We know there's a buried fuel tank. We know there's asbestos. We know it's in bad shape. Obviously, it's a commercial property, a little different maybe than residential, but what's our obligation to disclose those things? Or do we just set a time that anybody can inspect it, or what's your advice?
Well, I mean, if anyone asks about conditions on the property, certainly you have to disclose truthful information about what you know. I think in the notice, I would probably publish that the property can be inspected upon request, or and so then they could make appointments to see it, and then also put that it's being sold in its current as-is condition. Now, the opinions of value that I think you receive from brokers note some of those issues, and those are probably public records that could be inspected if anyone asked to see it. So I tend to think that, that information will be out there for somebody that looks at it, looks at the property. And I think if you're asked, you would have to disclose that you know of these things or certainly suspect these things exist.
Joe, I have a question. If somebody wants to inspect the property or look at the property in the main hallway. Yeah. I said, let's say somebody wants to inspect the property. There are the ceiling in the hallways have leaked so bad now that asbestos has fallen on the ground, and so it's been disturbed. So now it's in the dangerous level, because anytime the asbestos is disturbed up at that building, that type of asbestos, it's become dangerous to be around. So what do we do with that situation? Somebody wants to walk down through there, and I'm telling you, the floor is covered with asbestos that's fallen off the ceiling.
Well, certainly if it's hazardous for people to be in there, then I probably would tell them they can't be in there and tell them why.
Okay, so what's your pleasure? Do I have a motion regard to how to proceed?
And then we take on option A, which was listed at the, right up at, things are listed at the median of the two, what is it, 67.5, is that what it was? And then, go from there.
We'll do the public
If
bids.
it gets there.
It'll get that.
I know.
Lots on that. Lots on that.
Second that.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any other discussion or questions? Okay, so all those in favor of listing the Mount Summit property and publishing notice at the average of the two appraisals, which is 67.5, authorizing Mr. Harvey to draft that notice and arrange publication, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Joel, is there anything else you need from us to move forward?
I think that's it at this point. I'll probably want to, once I have the notice prepared, circulate a draft for everyone to take a look at. And if they have any additions or comments or questions, then certainly let me know before I get it published.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Anything else under old business? Maybe kind of along those lines. Eric, do you want to give a quick update? I know we talked a little bit about, you had a roof inspection.
okay,
Maybe some of
yeah.
the bond and what we're doing with the construction project.
Yeah, they themselves in an architect's firm went through a series of people getting sick and working from home, like a lot of people did. As we have Lori here, she'll be picking up Todd's kind of ideas that are a little bit already taken care of, and vice versa for the high school. So a little bit of double duty. But long before this, both the principals have had a chance to get faculty input and things put into place. The secure entrances are not going to be that complicated. We've talked before, you basically just swap a room on the periphery of the building into a room that you access and you put that somewhere else. The other thing that we already have permission for, I think I told you guys before, we're going to put another exit out of the elementary parking lot onto Hillsborough Road so that cars and buses will never cross. And that's actually not going to be very, very complicated. In terms of the third building, which is this building, I literally got a call just this week asking, actually very recently, asking for when the architects want to get some input on what the board envisions as the board room and the corporation offices. If you want to have a full-blown boardroom that looks the part and has all the audio and video and everything, or other intent, or do you want to have it here? You know, it's a nice building. It's on a nice place. It looks like it belongs on campus. So we'll do the obvious stuff. It obviously needs shingles, and it's got other work that will need to be taken care of just for maintenance that we inherited. But that's something too. These are things we can do a little bit out of our projects as we need to, but we can also come up some of the bond money to get a full-scale boardroom here. So I don't know how many of you've seen or been to other schools. Some are very fancy, and I really love the Monroe Central one. Like we're taking a look at it, brings in all of the townships that were put into the consolidation. Others are much less formal. The purpose of almost all of them are then converted to multi-purpose spaces as needed for things. So you take down the stuff so that you can have a large group meeting area. I think the one at Newcastle is very crowded for its size. We're smaller, but we have big space. So at some point, to generate ideas of how you really want it to look, how casual, how formal, how you see it configured within this space. And then that will drive how much work we would have to do to get it the way that we want it. But that's something that we'll need to talk about pretty soon, what the vision will be for that.
Rough?
Yeah, well, we won't be waiting for this building. You mean?
No. Not over there. I mean, they did core samples or something.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I'll show you those pictures. It's interesting. I don't necessarily do it right now, but come take a look sometime. They went down
Double.
Yeah,
It's interesting, and they cut sections of the existing roof, and they even made a couple comments like there's like twice as much stuff here as you would expect. But they do the samples, they find over the course of the roof, like the layer that is the layer they can start with, and it was just interesting. All this stuff, I'll show you pictures. It was in plastic bags. And then the other thing too, like just almost looks like an alpine lake, very shallow water up there. That is probably what's contributing to some of the leakage. And like the guys that went out there said, you can't be in your hallway and there's a drip coming here and think you can go to the roof and find that exact same spot, and that's where the water's coming from. They're going to need to do some flashing and pointing and other things with the masonry.
we know this year when we had to leak it in, we had 2 boys guarding a bucket down there. And then,
One of the comments was, because you can see it's almost like the tree core sample. You can see the history, and don't leave before I show you what I'm talking about. They put it in a plastic bag, and one of the comments, and it's like a foam, or it's like a wood. It's completely different layers of different things depending on who did it. And one of them made the comment, it looks like at least one of the years that you did roof replacement was a couple guys up there with a bucket full of tar and some mops. And I think I told you too that they found 27 deliberate openings cut into the high school roof at different places and not appropriately fashion fixed. So that's another place where water was coming in. And very hard, it's very hard to really see what's all on that roof from the ground if you're not actually up on there. And even then, it's got 2 different levels. And other things too, because there's different materials in the roof, and if you put up a big pointy aluminum television antenna and it just kind of gets forgotten about and it falls through the fabric of the roof, I mean, it's not necessarily in and of itself a big hole, but you can't just you have to then take, and patch it. So it was an interesting, out of my experience whatsoever. But they were very comprehensive, and they, like I said, get rid of anything that's a hole in the roof is going to get completely removed and fixed correctly.
One final thing on old business. I don't know if it's for Joel or for you, Eric. Where are we at exactly? And I probably should know, but as far as the actual bond process, obviously we're talking about the roof and talking about secure entrances, but
it's been changed a few times with what's going on, but the last I got from Jane was, I believe, sale in June.
Okay.
I'll dig that up and find that.
Okay. Anything else under old business? All right, new business, approval of transfer students. Didn't see anything in our packet, I don't think. So next is the first reading of the coronavirus policies. We have 5 policies, which are all in your packet. Requirements for social distancing, for personal protective equipment, for restricting the acceptance of international students, for tracking illnesses, and to suspend the policies after the pandemic. So, Michelle, I don't think we can get around the first reading, so let me hit the highlights.
I did. I went through and highlighted. Okay, pandemic policy, PAN 1, social distancing policy. PAN 1.1 definition, social distancing is a practice that can slow or reduce the spread of contagious diseases by reducing face-to-face contact with people who are not in your household. PAN 1.2, in order to practice social or physical distancing, stay at least 6 feet, about 2 arms length from other people. Cover your mouth and nose with a cloth face mask or covering. Do not gather in groups. Stay out of crowded places. Stay connected via phone, Zoom, or other media. PAN 1.3, large group gatherings, large events, and mass gatherings can contribute to the spread of COVID-19 in the United States. PAN 1.4, school-sponsored events. Student and community safety will be the deciding point in the decision to schedule or cancel school events. PAN 1.5, hand washing requirements. All children, staff, parents, and volunteers shall engage in hand hygiene at the following times: arrival to the facility and after breaks, before and after preparing food or drinks, before and after eating or handling food or feeding children, before and after administering medication or medical ointment, before and after providing incontinent care to include diapering and also assisting with changing wet or soiled clothes, after using the toilet or helping a child use the bathroom, after coming in contact with bodily fluid to include but not limited to saliva, mucus, vomit, urine, blood, feces, after handling animals or cleaning up animal waste, after playing outdoors or in sand, after handling garbage, after contact with animals, after coughing, sneezing, blowing your nose, after removing any personal protective equipment to include but not limited to gloves, masks, face shields, goggles, protective gowns, shoe protectors. Before and after providing health care for a student or staff member to include assessing body temperature or any other assessment or intervention that requires you to be physically less than 6 feet from another to provide hands-on care. Effective hand washing requires that we use soap and water and thoroughly wash wrist, hands, and fingers for a minimum of 20 seconds. Pan 1.6, food preparation and meal service requirements. If a cafeteria or group dining room is typically used, serve meals in classrooms instead. If meals are typically served family style, plate each child's meal to serve it so that multiple children are not using the same serving utensils. Food preparation should not be done by the same staff who diaper children. Sinks used for food preparation should not be used for other purposes. Caregivers should ensure children wash hands prior to and immediately after eating. Caregivers should wash their hands before preparing food and after helping children to eat. Caregivers providing feedings to a student via a G-tube are required to wash hands before and after each administration. PAM 1.7, food service delivery. Blue River Valley Schools authorize the corporation to utilize the food service management company Chartwells to provide meals to the community and to use the school kitchen facilities, school transportation resources, allow certified and non-certified staff to assist in the distribution of meal, will coordinate delivery locations, will minimize changes. And 1.8, recreational use of school facilities is suspended. Pandemic policy, PAN 2, personal protective equipment. PAN 2.1, personal protective equipment, commonly referred to as PPE, is equipment worn to minimize exposure to hazards that cause serious workplace injuries and illness. PAN 2.2, personal protective equipment may include items such as masks, gloves, safety glasses, shoes, earplugs or muffs, hard hats, respirators, coveralls, vests, and full body suits. PAN 2.3, personal protective equipment should be safely designed and constructed and should be maintained in a clean and reliable fashion. PAN 2.4, if the personal protective equipment does not fit properly, it can make the difference between being safely covered or dangerously exposed. Employers are required to train each worker required to use personal protective equipment to know when to use it, what kind is necessary, how to properly put it on, adjust, wear, and take it off. The limitations of the equipment, proper care, maintenance, useful life, and disposal of the equipment. If PPE is to be used, a PPE program should be implemented. Pandemic policy, PAN 3, prohibition of accepting international students during the COVID-19 viral crisis. PAN 3.1, this policy prohibits the enrollment of international exchange students during the COVID-19 pandemic. PAN 3.2, this policy will be reviewed annually prior to the start of the fall semester in every year until it is no longer needed. Pandemic policy, PAN 4, daily illness tracking. PAN 4.1, Blue River Valley Schools shall track staff and student illnesses and record daily. PAN 4.2, the reporter shall use initials instead of names for students due to confidentiality. PAN 4.3, the school nurse will work on a map of each school in order to track where the contagious illnesses last were, share with the maintenance supervision, and help with cleaning, disinfecting direction. PAN 4.4, this will be done in the same manner as was done with the flu in the past. The school nurse will select the top 3 classrooms to be cleaned. PAN 4.5, all rooms with contagious illness presented will be cleaned. Pandemic policy, PAN 5, suspension of policies for the duration of the emergency. PAN 5.1, the superintendent is authorized to suspend, modify, or adapt current board policy in response to an unexpected event related to the pandemic emergency. PAN 5.2, the superintendent shall maintain a record of all suspensions of policy that will be presented to the board at the next regularly scheduled meeting of the board for review and approval. PAN 5.3, the building principals, corporation IT and maintenance supervisors, school nurse, and corporation secretary and treasurer shall be given board discretion in supporting continuing operations and shall have a reasonable degree of discretion in responding to unexpected events in the absence of an administrator.
Okay, so let the minutes reflect that we had a first reading of PAN policy 1 through 5. We can adopt those at our next meeting. This is the rule. I think that brings us to the end of our agenda. Is there anything else we need to address this evening?
I have a couple questions. Like, are we going to require kids to wear masks?
It's looking that that's not going to be what the trend is going to be. If you're fragile, if you have anything that would make you susceptible or out of the ordinary, wash your hands, keep your distance, then we have to. And
Yeah, and another question. Physical education. When you get all those kids in the locker room, how are we going to get all these boys in one small confined area? So what are you saying?
I don't know. We talked about the locker rooms. Talked about that.
We've had some discussions just sometimes with athletics in general. Girls or boys or something kind of matter. Our PE classes are the size of a regular class now, so 25 kids.
And the locker room is pretty tight.
Correct, but it's still not. We used to have 50 in there at a time, and 2 years ago, so we've cut that down a little bit. We're going to put together a team of teachers to help decide these types of things as we work through this document together. Because they're going to have questions that some of us won't ever think of, and we'll have to we'll have some stuff we'll do as we go, but they're looking at disinfecting and wiping things down. If you read that document with the IHSA will take that and come out with further information specifically for that as well. Every week they meet, every other week they meet. Mr. Hoskins can do a lot of that part too. So I think at this point we don't know that answer. But I think as we move forward, it's definitely a question.
Every kid that she's in class with.
And that's why we're meeting with the county health officer to find out exactly how that and our obligations. We have to make sure everybody understands what exactly they have to do according to school policy, to the law, and to what's healthiest for people. So we have to have a blitz of all of this. Not that anyone's surprised by it at this point, because it's been the common culture, but even as it's been the common culture, it hasn't often been practiced with the care that we're going to have it practiced with our age group and our kids.
The biggest thing in our locker rooms is to keep those things. They take them with them. Our locker rooms actually are more spaced out than our classrooms are. Yeah. And so you can spread them out. We actually, for a school our size, have a lot of locker room that if we had to, we could readjust some things, provided they were all in working order.
If you have them all spread out in the locker room, one teacher can't supervise all those kids.
No, but we've used our special education aides in that regard as well, where they're monitoring those things. Now we try not to ever have a locker room unsupervised. So that would be a staffing change we would just have to make. But like I said, that is one concern, but I would say our general classroom, are concerned too, because come through them, there's 25, 26, 27, 28, 29 kids in some of our classes at elementary level.
No. Or in many places, that's the truth for every school everywhere. Nothing was designed to have, schools were designed to concentrate kids in very specific places. And and maximize the space. And now it's a different philosophy.
And I like that you're having the teachers have a say, because sometimes you don't think about those things. Because it's not your area, so you wouldn't think about it. So I like that.
From the moment we shut down, Mr. Reagan and I both have had a running list for a Google document. The first part was how do we end the year? And it was just constant questions, because what they come up with is maybe not, we're going to think bigger scale than what they might think. And so then when this shift started to change, we've opened that up to how are we going to start the year? What will summer look like? What types of questions? And so it's just being loaded with questions that are unanswered at the moment, but definitely when we sit together as a group, we'll pull that out as well as the document that the state's given
And I
us,
think that makes people feel good too.
right?
Well, we're gonna have some parents will bring it.
Yeah, we know. Yeah, we're gonna. The two things we're very soon going to be surveying is ask that exact question: Are your kids going to come back to Blue River? And then the other one, because of the nature of how things have changed very quickly, is do you have internet? So those are two things we're going to find out very soon. Our IT guys are going to survey that, and we already kind of know where there's some connectivity deserts here, but it's changing too in the county, and it's changing in some specific parts of the county, but not necessarily everywhere. But we have adult staff who, when they go home, don't have internet. It makes it very difficult if we're going to, well, as you know,
Yep,
if we're going to
I can
be
say it firsthand.
in a non-traditional instructional role where you know, for us, what normal is it goes out, gets on the bus, goes to school, might stay after school a little bit, right on with friends, but you don't. It's just not the way it is. And if you have to do your homework digitally, and there are places here where you just don't have it. It just is. It's nowhere. So having to figure out some better ways for that. And that's for adults too. And we're talking about our new hires, for example. They won't know where to live to have internet to do their job. So we're going to have to figure out ways to say, hey, yeah, it's a nice place to live, but if you want, it doesn't have cable, you can't get the water tower.
We worked with Verizon and whoever on why our campus is a dead zone.
Well, for most
Put it in
part,
the parking lot, like my phone pretty much.
The
one bar is zero.
if you picture Hillsborough Road, like right here, right? There's a change in elevation, and it's subtle, but it's there. The change of elevation from Hillsborough Road to that ridge on the other side of that batting cage is 100. It's like 100 feet. It's like subtle, but that ridge is 1,100 feet above sea level right there. So if you get further away from it, you tend to get more of it. But the further west you get on campus, it's hard to make a phone, especially if you're inside. It's hard to make a phone call. It's hard to get connectivity, but it's the geography of that particular place right there.
I think they're running cable down 300 euro.
Probably.
It's not big. It's on this.
Well, see, REMC, I do work for them, and they signed a contract with a company called Watch Communications. They're putting a tower, or they're putting a transmitter, whatever, on the tower there on 300. It's REMC tower. They're also putting one in Kennard, Middletown, maybe, somewhere else. So they're trying to expand that reach. And then another thing I mentioned to Eric today, I'm on the Community Foundation board, and they have funds available. I was curious, is some of it a financial issue with some of our families, and some of it's not, it's just logistic. But either way, I think there's money there that we can apply to Community Foundation, like say a startup cost to get hotspots, or there's something that we as a corporation potentially could go to the foundation, say we've got 7 employees and 14 students or whatever that can't get it and need a hotspot, then maybe we could apply and get that additional money.
And I'm not trying to be funny, especially in this era, but it becomes almost like a separate but equal kind of circumstance where the access to your full education, if it's going to be digital, is going to depend upon what house you can afford.
You might also educate, because there's probably most people, when they get a package on their cell phone, they get unlimited, right? But they don't know that you can turn it on at a hotspot. It doesn't cost you anything. If you have unlimited, I mean, it'll run a whole household off your cell phone. So it might be something we can,
Just
it may be just to
education.
educate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I use mine all the time. Not at home, but when I travel, because it's easier to try to get on.
They put
Hotel
caps on
Wi-Fi.
some of those too, because like my home has unlimited data, but only so many gigs on a
Oh, really?
hotspot. So
Wow.
we have unlimited data, but we don't have unlimited hotspot
Yeah.
data.
Understood.
But
But you don't
Verizon
have-
gave more.
Well, you don't on your, like, even if you have Verizon for your cable, they limit your downloads.
Right.
So like, I mean, we maxed out ours all this time. I've been home doing work, for 10 weeks, and everybody, all your downloads for everybody on Netflix and all now that limits that. And then what they do is they cut your speed. If you hit some 1 gig, I think.
Well, we've talked too, the culture of e-learning will have to change a little bit among our staff and our community, especially elementary. We've kind of been able to have packets and make by with that, but if we're providing the devices, then we're going to have to change that culture that we have built as well, which was a good place to get us started, but not how we will do this forever. And that will be a big hurdle for some parents, because some parents would rather they're more comfortable with the paper. But even if their kids comfortable with the technology, they won't be comfortable with the technology.
That goes to the devices.
Yep.
We can't spend money to send paper back and when we need to spend that money on the digital.
Well, there's a good possibility we'll have a surgeon.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a brand new one.
It's not even happened.
Well, you're probably going to look as it gets colder. I mean, I know pretty much all your colleges have already said after Thanksgiving, because it's 3-week window after Thanksgiving, they go back for finals and all, but they're not going back. It's all online.
Well, if many educational institutions are making if you have symptoms of flu, you can't come, regardless of what the underlying pathology really is. If it's symptoms of flu, thou shalt not come in the door. Yes.
They always have it. No different than any other city. I mean, this one's a little more severe to certain groups, but same issue, right? I got to go to work. I can go to school.
See, those are ways we could, back to my little stuff speech, so we could differentiate ourselves. Can we create an environment where we can offer some sort of childcare or something where a parent can take their sick child, where it's convenient, easy, those kinds of things. You gotta think outside the box here. I know it sounds crazy, but those are things we could do. Right, because if they're getting beat up by Newcastle and say, don't send your sick kid here, and your kid's got the flu or whatever, but they can come here and drop off one healthy kid and one sick kid and be on their way to work. I mean, that's a big plus. $6,000 a year per kid. Those are, that's what I'm trying to get us all thinking. I don't have all the answers, but I'll ask the dumb questions until I find a smart one. So.
No, I mean, it'd be a service all parents would appreciate.
Yeah. That's the way we can market and say we're different. In this pandemic era, we can isolate your kid, we can blah, blah, blah. Take a lot of thought, but that's.
Classroom.
There's
There's liability. There's liability.
There is. There is.
Yeah, I think that does it.
They thrive on liability.
I won't be on the board forever, so then I can take some cases. But you know where I'm headed with it.
No,
seriously. I mean,
you got to
think about those kind of things that we could really, that would be awesome for, a single mom with 2 kids to be able to say, okay, I know no matter what happens, I've got a place. And I can take them to the same spot, and I don't have to change my routine.
Regardless, like you said, education has changed. It's going to change. Regardless, it already has, and it's going to. Yeah, if nothing's going back the same. In our world that we did every day, travel, different restaurants, everything is going to change. So how can you excel? I agree.
One more real quick thing. I know we're running late for us anyway. Eric mentioned at lunch today about paying the summer athletic contracts, kind of modeling what we did for the spring. And at first I was like, wait a minute, but they may actually get back to be able to do something in July. So it's not a significant, I don't know, we need a motion, but he just kind of wanted affirmation that under that same model that we did before, that we would continue to pay those folks.
So what are we gonna do if we don't have cross country? We're gonna take cross country coach, business coach, next school year.
That'll be up to you guys. It depends on the circumstances and what you guys decide.
I guess the argument is in the spring, some of those folks have already started conditioning and at least done something.
Well,
Then in the summer, they may do something in July and early August. May not be able to do their full thing, but I guess I would be in favor of just paying the summer folks and let's regroup. And if they don't do anything for cross country, then I don't know, I have a hard time paying.
There's a spot where we're up to stop sometime.
Yeah.
well,
yeah.
let's look at that though, because I mean, like certain groups were going all through June. And then they pretty much, at the end of June, another sport. We ought to look at what it is and evaluate.
And the season
Before we just say,
being
let's just see what it
apples
is.
to apples.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I know there's basketball, there's volleyball, summer programs. Who else was there? Like maybe 5, yeah, I don't know folks know.
Yeah,
But they're not actively meeting right now.
no,
Not yet.
You can't,
They can't until
you
July
can't,
1st,
like AAU sports have started back, but like I said, it's still the 1 hour or super intense. And then they shut the gym down for an hour and they clean every ball, they clean the floors, and then the next week, every hour.
In that 38-page document, there's a 3-phase opening for athletics specifically in there. If you read through it, it'll tell you there's a real possibility that it's supposed to be fully open by August 15th if our school corporation chooses to follow that guide. So I would,
so it could be a wait and see.
my guess is going to be, if we open, it's supposed to all be open by August 15th as of right now.
Oh, yeah.
Correct, but I would say you err on that, I would rather err on that side, and plus you have people that financially depend on that, and if we've been providing for COVID thus far, then.
And on that, in that vein, what we do for summer sports, we should do for marching band. That's
Correct.
a big chunk in Rouse's income.
Mhm.
That's a, it's 8 hours a day.
The only difference you might have on anything summer would be like summer school. So our building still is offering a summer school credit recovery like we do every year, just online. Whereas in the elementary, they've offered some enrichment activities that we aren't able to offer in this environment this year. Maybe a year from now you can, but in this environment, we haven't been able to do that. There may be like a jump start to kindergarten, turn roundup, and those types of things. But I would say that would be the only area where I don't believe we haven't made any. I'm the only one that's made a recommendation for April, Mrs. Williams, to take over just like she does every year. So that would be an area that summer-wise would be changed.
Okay. Anything else needed on that, Eric?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Anything else before we adjourn?
We're gonna wait to see on that. Coaching.
Well, I thought we were gonna pay the folks.
Yeah, that's what I was hearing.
Oh, for summer.
Summer.
Summer only, not fall.
Yeah, it's in the master contract, the sports that are in the summer,
Okay.
comparable to what we did
Because we think they'll all do something,
Yeah.
we just don't know what.
coming out of the
And we've
spring.
already approved all those.
For the spring,
It's in the
yeah.
contract.
Yeah,
Summer sports, marching day, okay.
Yes. Anything that happens in the summer, will be paid. Like I said,
Based
he's
on the
got.
contracts that are already
Yeah.
approved.
Right.
right, yeah. And we can bring that page of the contract out and just use that as a baseline.
Okay. Anything else? One more time. Last call. You have to go home, you can't stay here. All right. Show adjourned until July. Thank you. Thanks, Joel.
I'll see ya.
There you go.
See ya.
And then
John, you think that right, you're not good at this one.